This is AION AI Builders, today's deep dive for everyone shipping AI in production. Last week, Hugging Face ditched their giant frontier model for 100,000 specialized agents. Your stack is about to fundamentally restructure. If you don't architect for the coordination tax, it will eat every dollar of inference savings.
There's this persistent illusion when you're elbow deep in your IDE, shipping code for a deployment.
Right, like you're building in a total vacuum.
Exactly. It's just you, the underlying logic, and the cloud. The physical constraints, the actual copper and silicon, they just feel totally abstracted away.
Yeah, well, as long as the API responds, the supply chain feels like someone else's problem.
Right. But then you wake up, pull down your AION daily briefing like the one that dropped today, June 7th, 2026, and that pristine little bubble just violently pops.
Yeah, the headline is literally Agent Sprawl, Power Shifts, and China's Hardware Surge Hit Convergence.
So look, since you're already an AI power user, you've likely seen the headlines. We aren't here to do a basic news recap. Our mission for this deep dive is a rapid-fire critique of the briefing to extract the actual 6 to 12-month implications for what you are building today.
Because if you misread how this incoming multi-agent chaos interacts with the geopolitical hardware surge, you risk building your product on an active fault line.
So let's jump straight into the software layer. The briefing flags what they call the 100,000 agent problem for enterprise AI. They pair it with that new Hugging Face experiment where they basically ditched the giant frontier model for a multi-model architecture on finance tasks.
Small, highly specialized models. It's a profound shift away from monolithic dependencies.
Right. It's like moving from a single expensive senior developer to a botnet of 100,000 hyperactive interns. You definitely don't need GPT-4 for every tiny node in a pipeline.
No, you really don't.
But doesn't managing them become a nightmare? The briefing just calls this a cost-saving build versus buy signal. I think that totally misses the engineering reality. Keeping 100,000 specialized agents aligned has to obliterate those initial cost savings, really.
And that is exactly what the briefing fails to underwrite. They focus on inference costs, which is, the obvious first-order effect. But the real 6 to 12-month implication for builders is what we need to call the coordination tax.
Unpack that coordination tax for me.
Well, think about the math of a multi-agent pipeline. If you string together 10 specialized models, and let's say each has a 95% success rate, the joint probability of the whole pipeline succeeding without an error is only about 60%.
Oof. So your orchestrator has to constantly handle a 40% failure rate.
Exactly. Automated retry logic, context rollbacks, dynamic routing. That is where the value capture happens next year. The durable moat isn't the model itself anymore.
It's the infrastructure that pays that coordination tax efficiently.
Right. And there's another layer the briefing glosses over, which is auditability.
Oh, the compliance piece. Because institutional finance hates black boxes. If a giant model hallucinates a revenue projection, a compliance officer can't untangle the weights to find out why.
But if you deploy a multi-agent pipeline, you get a discrete audit trail by default. Model A pulls the filings. Model B normalizes the data.
So you can literally inspect the handoff and pinpoint where the bad data entered.
Exactly. Deterministic routing between non-deterministic models is the only way you get enterprise sign-off. So pivot your engineering toward orchestration infrastructure today.
But wait, if you have millions of specialized agents constantly running background tasks, summarizing, routing, they don't sleep.
You're watching AION AI Builders, the daily deep dive on what breaks and what builds when you ship AI, every weekday. AIONpowerhouse.com.
That continuous inference load means your energy needs absolutely skyrockets.
Which forces us right into the physical layer.
Right, the hardware convergence. The briefing highlights 3 massive signals out of China. CATL, scaling sodium-ion batteries, a new axial flux motor hitting 18,000 RPM, and new 4-fin missiles deployed near Taiwan.
And they treat them as entirely isolated events.
Yeah, I really push back on that framing. They flag the missiles as a massive tail risk for GPU intro, which, okay, fair. But then they look at the CATL batteries in total isolation. If sodium-ion breaks the lithium monopoly, doesn't cheaper grid storage massively accelerate AI data center economics? Isn't that a tailwind?
That's a great catch. The briefing lacks a unified theory of constraints. If you look at the platform power shifts, like that strategy piece outlined, this is a unified narrative about physical system resilience.
So it's a dual-edged sword. Break down the risk side first.
The risk is the 4-fin missiles. They represent a severe 30-day straight closure risk. We have to strip away the politics and look at supply chain math.
Because almost all advanced packaging for high-bandwidth GPUs relies on TSMC facilities in Taiwan.
Right. It's the ultimate single point of failure. If your business model assumes uninterrupted access to infinite cheap compute, your risk profile is functionally unacceptable right now. You have to stress test those dependencies immediately.
Okay, but then on the opportunity side, what about that Chinese axial flux motor hitting 18,000 RPM? Why does a software builder care about motor RPM?
Because of the embodied AI convergence, axial flex motors give you a massive increase in torque density relative to weight.
Oh, which is the holy grail for humanoid robot joints.
Exactly. And hitting 18,000 RPM means they've solved the structural integrity for mass manufacturing. It is a profound catch-up milestone. When manufacturing compounds like that, the hardware cost curve collapses violently.
So you need to update your humanoid hardware cost assumptions downward by, what, 12 to 18 months?
At least. Western startups relying on complex hardware moats are in deep trouble. Hardware is becoming a commoditized API. The software layer robotics plays the builders focusing on multi-agent neural networks that control the hardware they win.
Whoever builds the best orchestrator wins. It all cycles back to the software.
It really does.
So pulling it all together, the 6 to 12-month reality is this. Master software orchestration, pay the coordination tax, and aggressively dodge single-source hardware dependency shocks.
Yeah, resilience across both domains. Which actually brings up a final thought from the byte-byte-go signal about the triad of systems design: latency, throughput, and bandwidth.
Right, the inescapable constraints.
If the TSMC supply chain becomes constrained due to geopolitical escalation, you cannot rely on raw, low-latency compute. Low latency requires massive, over-provisioned hardware.
So if compute is scarce, latency is the first casualty. You'll be forced to maximize throughput instead, like queuing agent tasks and batch processing just to squeeze utility out of limited GPUs.
Exactly. So the final question you have to ask yourself about your architecture today is this: is your product fundamentally dependent on pristine, low-latency inference?
Because if it is, you're building on borrowed time.
Have you engineered enough asynchronous throughput to survive the coming hardware crunch?
That is exactly the question you need to be holding in your mind as you open your terminal today, because the abstraction layer is breaking down. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Now get back to building.
That's your AION AI Builders Briefing. Subscribe to keep the signal coming. New episode tomorrow.